just when you release music and you see people listening to it and loving it, or when you play a show and the interaction with fans and stuff like that, like, and the stories you hear from people that listen to your music and the impact it's had on their life, it definitely is the more fulfilling part, because you know that what you felt resonated with someone else and they felt that too. I think that there's something special in that. Mm-hmm. I think, like, humans are more connected than I think we realize. And when you connect with someone on an artistic level, I don't know, it satisfies you, I think, in a way that nothing else really can.
Hey everyone, welcome to Artist Decoded episode 104. This is your host, Yoshino, and in this episode, I get the opportunity to talk to artist and producer Jordan Reyes, formerly of the group Basecamp. This is a really great conversation between me and Jordan. We talk about synesthesia and how that relates to his musical process, how daily practices, regimens, and physical activity can fuel a more efficient creative practice. We also talk a bit about his former group, Basecamp, and his time evolving with the group and where that's led him today. I'll keep this intro short and sweet, but if you can, feel free to donate to us on our website, artistdecoded.com. There's a donate link which will direct you to our PayPal, or you can go to our iTunes page and leave us a review. It helps listeners just like yourself to find out about the podcast. This next song is from Jordan's newest project called Body Image. The track is entitled First Place. Hope you enjoy.
Sometimes I wonder why it hurts so much to say. You know I'll say it anyway. Those that tell you crime never pays, they were the guilty ones in the first place. In the first place.
Anyways, thanks for coming, and it's good to finally, sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Where are you originally from?
Originally from Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Vegas, and then moved out to Nashville for a hot second, and now I'm in LA.
Oh, how long have you been living in LA for?
Like 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, like, for the past couple of years, I've been back and forth from Nashville, but it was just kind of time to just be here full time.
Yeah. What made you want to originally move to Nashville?
At the time, I was in like more of a prog rock band, actually, and
really,
yeah.
What was it called?
ABM.
Okay.
It wasn't good, but at the time, we were like kind of debating. We knew we had to get out of Vegas. Just Vegas culturally isn't like good for art or really anything. So other than raging, but
well, I mean, it's probably a much different time period too for you.
Yeah, definitely.
When you were,
I was a lot younger. And, at the time, like I had family in Nashville that, were like, hey, come out here. So I was like, cool. So we did that, and Nashville's great. I mean, Nashville is great. It's a great place, great city. It's growing a lot. I think there's a lot of influx of people from New York coming down, and then a lot of people getting out of LA going, which is tight.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because it's in the middle, and New York's getting so expensive for artists and musicians and stuff and the business is kind of leaving New York. So Nashville's cheap. It's pretty. It's like chill. I think a lot of people are just like looking for a little more chill because you don't need to always be in it nowadays. So I think it's created a really cool culture in Nashville, mixing with like the Southern culture that's already there, and then you know, the LA and the New York thing kind of meshing.
But it's very similar with Austin too, because I heard Austin has a really good growing art scene as well.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely similar in a way, for sure. Like it's just like this new places that are, you know, kind of developing musically and truly being on the map. But with that being said, you know, I'm in LA. So
yeah. But, yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to visit Nashville. I've never
definitely should. I mean, it's cool. It's beautiful. Yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot of nostalgic things now.
Yeah.
How long did you live there for?
Like 10 years.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's a good chunk of time.
Yeah, for a second.
Yeah. Do you find it hard to? I mean, I know that there's like a big music scene over in Nashville, but do you find it hard to make connections as you were out there?
I definitely did. I didn't necessarily, because of the type of music scene that was there. And the music that I've always kind of been into, you know, I mean, from like prog rock to, you know, the whatever, you know, more experimental stuff that I do now, or like electronically, it never really connected with Nashville. Nashville was always like a, you know, rock based, country based, kind of like that kind of mindset, which is cool in its own way. But, just until I think the past year or so, there's been a developing like scene for stuff that connects with what I'm into and what I do.
So what kind of things were you into growing up?
All sorts of stuff.
I mean, outside of music, like the arts or films or.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I was like, a big, huge chunk of my life, I was into, visual arts, like drawing. I did a lot of like pencil and charcoal work growing up. I was like, that's what I was going to about to go to school for. Actually, it was art, not music.
Interesting.
Like through high school and stuff, like I was pushing to like go into like visual arts. And
did you move to Nashville for college?
I not really. No, I kind of like I did just like a semester of college, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to help me with what I want to do.
Yeah, this is really for me.
Yeah. So yes, I mean like drawing was a huge thing for me growing up. Aside from music, I was classically trained, piano. So like piano and like drawing were like, that was like my thing growing up. But I, you know, just like music kind of became a priority, and I kind of stopped drawing and whatnot for a while. But past couple of years, I've gone back into it, doing more visual arts.
Yeah,
which has been really, really cool. Is having like a release in a different way, and I think it always plays back and forth into what you do.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're definitely more in an age now of the acceptance of polymaths, where people have multidisciplinary, they create with multidisciplines. You know? Yeah,
definitely. I think it's really important in a way. Like, it's almost necessary, I think, to like grow, like in any way, like having multi like things to do and push your mind in different ways. Whether it be like if you do music, doing visual arts, or even like physical activity, how that plays into like growing skills physically, or you know, I've definitely been exploring that recently for sure. I think that's really cool.
How would you say that you were when you were a kid growing up in Las Vegas, and what was that experience like for you? Because I can imagine, you know, being there so close to the Strip, and there's so many people flying in, you know, into Vegas to essentially, you know, for like a couple nights of debauchery, you would be exposed to that from a very young age.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, both my parents were in show business. They met like, you know, in the shows. My dad had it, you know, it was part of the whole Vegas scene. My mom was a dancer and stuff. And so I was definitely really like in it from a young age, but it definitely affected me in a way that I've just kind of been like thinking about, just like reflecting in a time now in my life, reflecting on that and how that's impacted my life.
How do you think it's reflected? I mean, how do you think you've been affected by it?
I think I'm less excited by things, I think, or like things don't excite me as much. So I feel like I like to push things more, because there's like an like when you grow up like having everything you want and just all the crazy buildings and the lights and the stuff that, you know, most people don't experience. So they're like in the middle of their life being like, whoa, look at these crazy lights and there's like crazy shows and stuff that was like kind of normal for me. So to achieve that same feeling, I guess it kind of pushed me to do things differently in life.
Yeah. Do you do psychedelics at all?
I have not, no. I am very, very interested in it, but that's definitely a next step for me very soon.
Yeah. I guess I'm asking because, you know, now we're in a day and age where I think discussions of psychedelics, I mean, yeah, you know, in like the 60s and 70s, you know, Terrence McKenna and, you know, there was like that movement of psychedelics and experimentation with psychedelics. But, you know, I guess I just ask people now because I guess that conversation has been reignited in certain ways, you know, especially because there's a lot more research and study upon that. But I'm also asking you because of just your experience being in such a oversaturated scene where a lot of people, you know, intake these like different substances, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I guess like, because I think maybe
like
because I was always around it, like, it didn't really seem appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like kind of growing up in that you see it, you know, you see everyone gambling, you see the strippers, you see like everything in the reality of it versus like just those 3 days that you're there. So it kind of, I don't know, for me, it impacted me. I kind of saw it as, for a lot of my life, I saw it as a negative thing.
Of course. Yeah, I would think,
you know, and I always,
so too.
like for like my childhood, you know, especially I was like, nah, like that's not for me kind of thing until like, later in my life when I was like, when I educated myself on like the reality of some of it. And now I'm like, definitely very supportive of that, especially like the work inside psychedelics and and whatnot. But
yeah. So then, you know, growing up, were you always, aside from drawing, when did you start experimenting with music, and what was you said you were a classically trained pianist.
Yeah. I was probably like 5 or 6 when I started playing piano. I was really weirdly into music as a child, like listening to just like classical music and like Phantom of the Opera and stuff like that. And, you know, my parents were in show business. So like I was kind of exposed to like, you know, a lot of disco and stuff like that. But I started playing piano and I just kind of did that just like classically for a second until high school. I started a band and did that whole thing. But yeah, it's always been there. So it's weird to kind of like be like, oh yeah, like what was like for me, like at this point, I feel like it's just always been part of me and what I've just done.
It's almost second nature now.
Yeah, definitely for sure. It's almost like if I don't, sometimes like when I go spend a period of time not making music, like I start feeling weird. I start feeling like anxious. Like
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Do you believe in synesthesia?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have it, or do you have some sort of symptoms of it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't. I hear some stories that it's like super. People say it's like super, you know, intense. I don't know if I have like, because there's like some people have very intense visual, I guess. But I would say I have elements of it. Yeah, definitely.
What is it like for you?
It's more spatial, like sound within space. It's more of a physical representation of sound within that space, I guess. And sometimes I guess I in a way I do see it within that physical.
So when you go in and you're producing, let's just say you're producing a personal project for yourself, do you see it, because, you know, relating it to drawing when you're a kid and also relating it to, you know, your experiences as a classically trained pianist, do you see a thread between all of those things?
Definitely. Yeah. The way I draw, like the way I produce, or
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. I guess like for me, like personally, I see it in the detail of my work. I spend a lot of time focusing on small moments that, you know, a lot of people don't pick up on the first listen or like the first sight of it. It's just like there's all these like these little moments that make up the whole thing. like just artistically as a kid, I was very into drawing like really detailed, small things that you had to like really pay attention to what it was. And I think definitely like within the music I make today, I focus a lot on those small moments that you don't quite notice on the first listen or the first pass, but you feel it and you know it's there, and you hear the attention to detail, and you respect it in a way that you don't quite know what it is, but with like, I think some of the records like that, like you just like feel it. So yeah.
Well, I think that, it's what it sounds like is because of your experience throughout these years that you've been creating artwork, music, and drawings, and everything within the arts, and your experiences as a person, that it's given you this language to be able to speak, but from an audible perspective, and to be able to add these little, it's kind of like you're a chef or something, and then you have all of these spices, and then just by your intuition and your experience, like how much of the spice that you should put into it. And there's these certain like nuances to the way that you create now, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just kind of, it's like second nature, very like, and a lot of that just comes with time, just doing it over and over and over again, and finding, what you like, how like the way the repetition of it, you do it so many times, like the times that you hate it will start fading away until it's just kind of like what you do.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to be able to talk to different creatives too, from my perspective, because I'm always trying to tie in this is just any sort of conversation. When you have a new conversation with someone, you're trying to tie in your experiences and then trying to relate it with theirs. depending on if you care about that conversation.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because there's, and also, it's the mood too. And, if you feel in the mood to have that conversation too, right? But I always find it interesting to like relate certain things from my past into someone else's past and figure out how that is relatable in certain ways, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I was going with that. But anyways, let's talk about your time with Basecamp, and how did that come to be? And also, so recently you decided to take a break, or the entire band decided to take a break, right?
Yeah, we were in the middle of writing a record, and it just didn't feel right. And that's kind of what we were talking about. Like, intention is really big for me within my art. The intention of what I'm doing.
Can you elaborate on that?
I guess it's, what's the purpose? Why are you doing it? And for my personal stuff, and stuff that's special to me, like Basecamp, we kind of lost focus of the intention, and we all saw that, and we're like, okay, it's not right now, so let's just put this on hold, like, because we didn't want to just like do something just to do it, because I feel like that, like when you do something just to do it, it becomes complacent. People, they hear that. They don't hear like first the intent. Like if you put your love and heart into something and it's right and it's connected with yourself, then the audience will also feel that. And we kind of just got to a point where like, hey, like it's not connecting with us. And that was kind of a huge thing, is like, we all knew, like as a unit, we knew when everything was right. When it was connected all the way, we're like, yeah. And like, we were super stoked on it. And it was just, there was just a point where like, let's not force something that isn't, smooth. Mm-hmm. So
I think it's really hard to be honest, especially because, it's like this project that you guys have created is also makes money too.
Yeah, definitely.
So to be able to be honest enough with each other, to be able to say that, oh, maybe we should come back to this at a later point in time, or, and plus you don't want to like let people down.
Yeah, definitely.
Let fans, or, even let each other down. Right.
Sure.
Because it's almost like it's almost like like this brothership, or, it's like this bond, right?
Yeah, it's a very intense type of relationship that is unlike any other. It's almost more like I always say it's more like almost like a weird marriage or something like that than anything. It is interesting, yeah, because there's just so many moving pieces with, yeah, you see like the money and like you have a whole team around you and stuff like that. But it never was about that from the beginning. Like the whole purpose of Basecamp was to do something that wasn't about that. At the time we started Basecamp, I was doing a lot of things for money and
like producing for people.
Yeah, money. It's producing for people, and it got to a point where I was like, I'm making music, but I'm not doing anything I want to do. And the reason I've always wanted to do music is just to do what I want to do. Like that's the whole reason why I've gone through all this is just to do what I want to do. And I got to the point where I wasn't. And so we were like, let's do what we want to do. And then when we started doing that, it just started rolling into, and it just turned into Basecamp.
So how did Basecamp form and when did it form? Was it in Nashville?
It was in Nashville. It was 2012. And at the time, me and the other producer in Basecamp, Aaron Harmon, we were producing for all sorts of people as a duo. And we met our singer, Aaron Miller, through one of those just sessions, just working with other artists and whatnot. And we're just like chatting. We started like, oh, you like this band? You like, and like, say like in Nashville, like finding another person that was like into Mount Kimby or something like that was rare, at the time, especially at the time we were like, oh, like cool music. Like,
well, probably especially at the time and place too.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it was one of those things where like we found one other person that was on our like wavelength, and we just like kind of ran with it. And the next thing we had like, our manager out here heard it, and he's like, yo, let me don't just like, because we're just going to release it on SoundCloud and just like whatever. And
it's a very artist thing to do.
Yeah. We're like, oh, it's cool. Like maybe like we'll show our friends. And our manager's like, no, please don't do that. Let me do something. And we're like, okay. And it turned in, and then it rolled into a band. And then, we had an amazing a couple of years with that.
Where'd the name come from?
It was kind of just like it was just like an offhanded cool name that we had, that when it was like we say, like one of those things, like when the way we kind of operate is like the minute one person said something and we're all three of us were like, yeah, we just all knew, we always kind of knew it was right. And that's kind of like the way that kind of came with like Aaron said it, and at the time it like really represented this cold, this visually like this cold space, kind of measure this this cold, safe place on a mountain. And like that's the way our music kind of felt to us, just very cold is a word we kept on using.
That's an interesting word to describe something, because generally people will describe, like, I mean, I can understand that, in terms of describing something as cold, but generally when people say cold, that's associated with the negative thing.
Yeah.
I think because of people's idea of comfort and warmth, maybe. But why was that? Why do you think that was like a safe word or something?
Well, I guess because it's I guess it's the warmth within the cold. Like it's like this environment that's cold, but there's like this like area within that is like comforting. Like it's like just like like when you are cold, like when it's cold outside, and then you like get all cozied up in a blanket. Like it's that feeling. I guess it's just I don't know.
Well, and I think that's an interesting No, that's cool. I like that, because I think that's an interesting homage to life when you think about certain synergistic things coming together, and then that's where the warmth is, right? Because
Definitely.
A lot of things within life can feel sterile and cold, and to be able to sort of find that comfort, and then also, I mean, I think we're all just trying to find people that we connect with.
Definitely, yeah.
Especially being creatives and being, as much as I'd like to think about it, I think that as much as I like to think about myself as not being super sensitive, I know I am in certain ways.
Yeah.
And generally artists are, I'm making a generalization, but generally artists are pretty sensitive people, right?
Yeah, I think you have to be. I mean, it's a generalization, but being sensitive could be on so many different levels. It could be, emotionally sensitive. It could be, you know, just sensitive in a way, and I think it is a very important part of you for sure as an artist.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was talking to Nicole from 100 Waters and on a podcast episode, and she said something about the arts is one of the only fields where sensitivity and being sensitive is rewarded and applauded.
Definitely. It's very strange. I just heard the story about this, the industrialization of America changed the way that people like awarded like personalities, and like the strong, the salesman type, the like that fake kind of just in your face kind of personality started to become like that was awarded, and like the quiet, sensitive kind of types were like, oh, they're just like shy and quiet, and like that became like more of a negative trait. When I don't think it's like that anymore. Like,
I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because that would make sense, and I think that would make sense because during the Industrial Revolution, a lot of things were rewarded because of efficiencies.
Yeah,
if you can make things more efficient, it's seen to be as a more positive trait. And generally, when you want to make things more efficient, you have to cut out certain, you have to cut the fat, right?
Exactly,
you have to cut certain things out, right? So if you are more sensitive towards things, you're taking the time to be sensitive towards that particular thing, which
and putting the care into it and the love, like in the attention to detail and like all that stuff like that. Like that's the first thing you take out is the detail. You're like, okay, we don't need any of that and stuff like that. And you take that away and you lose that quality. You lose that special part of whatever you're doing, I think.
But I wonder where we're at right now with because we are in like the technological revolution, so it's prior to this was the Industrial Revolution, and then now it's a technological revolution. And it seems that people want to connect more in a more authentic way, because there's such a barrier for communication with social media. And I think we got to a place where we tried, we got we all got connected, like the internet connected us all, and then we're like, okay, well now let's find a place to do it online. And then those elements started being created, and then now we're definitely at a point where like people are like realizing that's not enough. Like that's not the way we're designed as a species, is to like just become like isolated but connected. It's a weird dynamic for our brains, I think, versus like these kind of conversations, just like being in front of someone, is a completely different experience that a lot of people don't get to have. Weirdly, for sure. I was just thinking about that the other day, even simply thinking about the idea of a phone conversation. And then prior to when the phone was built, people would have a phone conversation, and then they'd be like, oh, I can't get all of like the subtleties and details of someone's like facial structure and
exactly the way they're looking at you, like, are they all shifty when they're talking to you? Definitely.
Exactly. And
now we're like got just like speaking emojis.
Exactly. People just speaking like happy faces, and there's so much
it's like going back to like the hieroglyphics and
I guess there's an interesting like caveman sort of communicative story in there.
It's like it goes back to the efficiency. It's like the efficiency of like getting a message across. You could just send like a thumbs up, but there is something different in like talking to someone, because like those subtleties can get lost, and like the conversation can go a way different. I don't know, like you have like a text you get and you're like, oh, they're like, they seem to be like upset or like what a dick, when like they're just like, oh, okay, cool.
But maybe they're just really busy at that particular time, and all they could see is yes, no, and a lot of those things get lost.
Definitely. I think it causes a lot of miscommunication within ourselves. Like, if you really think about like how much that's going on a day-to-day basis, how much miscommunication is causing negative thoughts and impacts on relationships because of that. I don't know. It's interesting.
Do you tend to call people a lot?
Oh, no.
No.
See, like I say that, but then I was like, please don't call me.
Yeah.
Like, just like text me. I just give me.
Yeah.
I'm also like usually like when I'm in the studio, I always have like my phone on silent. So people like stop calling me because they're like, Jordan's not going to answer.
What's your day usually look like? How do you, I mean, would you consider yourself a pretty organized person, or how do
I'm definitely into like the routine.
What sort of routines?
I like to have a pretty easygoing morning. That's always important to me.
Why is that?
Because I always stay up super late, and I like waking up early is one of the main reasons why I chose this lifestyle. It's because when I was a kid and someone was like, "Hey, you got to wake up," I was like, "Nah, I don't want to do that."
So when do you usually wake up?
Probably like 10:30, not too bad. But I always like to like work out like in the morning, like actually I got like running, especially since I've been here. I've been like hitting all the trails and all that nonsense.
That's awesome.
I feel like that gets my mind going in like just like in like a cool way. It's like I feel just like, all right, I can go sit in a studio now for another 12 hours and I don't feel like
anxious
or anything. Yeah. It cures a lot of that, that to like allow me to, I think, go for as long as I do in the studio sometimes.
I definitely need physical activity in my life to keep my mind level. If I don't, do any sort of physical activity, at least minimum 4 times a week.
It's wild how like just like doing a little bit like will really just kind of set your day in like a proper direction. They say it is that sensitive, like it's like, so like you just like are sensitive to like if like you're not right, if you're not regulated, I think internally it's hard to, I think, push yourself on that external level, I guess, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense.
Or like it's not hard to, but maybe like it makes it easier too.
And I also think having a base of something that is routine and regular keeps your mind stable to be able to do the more creative things too.
Definitely.
You have something concrete to rely on, and then you can put your mind in the abstract.
Definitely. Yeah. And also for me, like I said, I was, explores more the idea of being balanced just as a person. Lately I've definitely been exploring that idea. It's just like balancing every aspect, because sometimes I'll get in phases where like I'll just be in the studio for 12 hours a day for every day until like I realize I haven't done anything. I'm not eating, I'm not working out, and I was like, I'm like, I don't feel well, like it's like what, like that's not good in one way, like, and I think I feel like it impacts the work I'm doing. So if I'm completely balanced, theoretically I'm doing good.
Yeah.
And also, physical stuff for me, like running is very meditative, which gets me in a good headspace as well.
Would you consider yourself a spiritual person?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
In what ways?
I'm still trying to figure that out, I guess.
Yeah. That's a good, honest answer.
Yeah. I think maybe even a month ago, I would have maybe answered that differently. But
how do you think you would have answered a month ago?
I would have maybe said a little bit. But
what do you think has changed then?
I'm not 100% sure. It's just, I think, kind of just exploring more ideas on that, and just the world we live in, and the way we're connected as a species, and I'm not quite sure yet. I'm still kind of just like,
no, that's fine. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just curious because, I'm just curious about your process.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, a lot of people take the word spirituality in like a religious way. And I don't think those are the same thing at all.
I agree.
I think they can be, for some people. but it's much more than that. And I think spirituality, is a word that we've assigned to something that we don't quite understand as a species yet. And, the religious aspects of it have kind of pushed those things like a little bit, but there's a lot of power to the way our minds work and how they relate to the balance of everything, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think just because someone is religious doesn't necessarily mean that they're a spiritual person.
Exactly. Yeah. And
you could just be regurgitating information.
Yeah, definitely.
As a religious person.
And that's also, that's the dangers of that, I think. But I think spirituality is definitely a different thing. Cause I think it exists on a different level than religion.
Do you think that's been informing, the past couple months, maybe even this reinvigoration of spiritual thoughts has informed the way that you create music? Have you seen it?
I think so. Yeah. I think because the past couple months I've dove a lot deeper into my artwork and the stuff I've been doing, and being out here has switched up a lot of things for me. And within that, within change, you always find growth. So it was just something that kind of has been kind of just like poking its head out that I've seen. And again, like exploring myself artistically, the deeper I go with that, I feel like the deeper you go exploring yourself artistically, you have to like address certain things about yourself when you do that. And you have to address certain thoughts and processes about your life that affect your art.
Is that where the balance, the rebalancing of yourself has come into fruition?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I like what you said about when there's change, there's growth, because I think when I find the times when I grow the most, I don't know, it's kind of weird to say because sometimes you force yourself into it.
Oh yeah.
And then other times you just segue into the next thing, or something drastic happens in your life, like the loss of a loved one or
Definitely.
Something of that sort, where it forces you to change. Right?
Definitely. Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess that's the interesting ebb and flow of the movement of life.
Yeah. Like there's always change. And there is like drastic change. There's small changes, and there's like intense changes, but there's something to find in every choice that's been made, and every move that's been made.
What made you want to move to LA?
There's a million. I mean, a lot of it was just easier for me to kind of do what I'm doing. Just currently, my team's out here, everyone's out here. There's a lot of just cool stuff out here, and I wanted there's things I wanted that at this time Nashville couldn't really. It was just harder to do, and also and a lot of it was some personal growth, like diving deeper into my artistry and stuff like that. When I'm out here, for me, there's almost like less distractions artistically, and it's allowed me kind of just, like I said, that change. I needed to change something, and I didn't really quite know why, really, and that's why I'm like kind of at where I'm at, is just like evaluating all those parts of this change, and like why maybe I did, and that's why I've kind of come up with some of these things.
Because I think about that in terms of moving to a new place or traveling, or the idea of movement or going somewhere else. And it's like, is it a form of escapism? Because sometimes it can be, or is it because that's really the place that I need to be? So I ask myself those questions sometimes when I go and travel, or when I go make a decision to like move a different place.
Yeah, for sure.
Where do you think you are with that?
It's definitely for a purpose, for sure. Yeah. I knew I wanted to push myself, and in LA definitely pushes me. Nashville, I have a very it's just like really pretty and it's open and there's a pacing to it that I love, but it's, I get in a place that is like more of a coast, and LA is just so much more intense that it challenges me. It pushes me in a lot of different ways that I haven't been able to get. So that's one of the huge things I'm excited about. It's just, I guess, it's a challenge in a way, and I enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think since you've moved to LA, what have you been focusing on, whether it be like internally or whether it be creatively?
Okay. Yeah. Currently I'm I guess stabilizing, I guess is the best way to say it. Just like when you move somewhere, you have to like, it disrupts like you said, like all the routines and all that kind of stuff like that. So I'm in a very like stabilizing kind of space, personally, just getting back in, or I guess not getting back, but creating new routines and, environments for myself, finding new cool spots and whatnot. But, musically, I've gone back to, kind of focusing on the, artistry of using like electronic instruments. Like, I use a lot of samplers and like, a lot of external gear, and, a lot of people just, it's like electronic music. So it's like, you're kind of push and play a lot, which you are, but you can use those instruments like as like a guitar, like, getting really good at, a crazy sampler is an art form. So I've been kind of just like diving back into, a lot of analog gear. I'm going to, I'm getting into modular
synths.
Yeah. So I'm about to take that plunge into just the depths of modular world and that. So that'll be a whole new challenge in its own of wrangling that beast. But
yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah. What do you think keeps you constantly interested in creating music?
A lot of it's toys. Like I said, like a lot of those like gear, like modular, like it's like challenges, I guess. Like my new project, Body Image, we did the whole thing on like the OP1 and a bass guitar and like a Mellotron. And like I limited myself to like those things, and I set these like boundaries for us in a way. And I was like,
I totally know what you mean.
Yeah, and like when you set those boundaries and and you create like a challenge in a way, you're like how could I make the coolest thing I can make using these three things? And I constantly do that with a lot of stuff I do. So like different combinations of stuff. And when you create, it's creating challenges, and whenever you do that, something new comes out of it. And there's something new comes out of you that you didn't know that you could do, instead of just doing the same thing over and over again. A lot of people get stuck in that, like, oh, I'm good at this, so I'm going to keep on doing that, versus like pushing yourself to do something completely different.
Do you usually like to create within parameters?
Not with it, not like, I guess, in what way? I guess it depends.
Well, because okay, so for instance, with what you were talking about, using like setting up these sort of boundaries.
Yeah.
With my photography, sometimes I'll be like, okay, this is the sort of lighting that I want to use, but within that, I'm going to be playing with, these different materials or, so I find myself setting up parameters or boundaries within the space. You know?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely love that. I said it all turns into a game. It turns it into this thing where, you're only able to have those resources, and how creatively can you use those resources? Yeah, and it goes back to just doing something new, do something that you're a little unfamiliar with. The ignorance in that gains like different results than you would if you're really good at it. Like I love like reflect on those moments, like when you're a kid, like in a band, like when I was like super young, the crazy stuff I'd write and say and like whatever, you're like wow, that's wild. Like, how did I ever think of that? But it's because of the ignorance. You didn't know. I didn't know like you weren't supposed to do that, or so it's super interesting and to like continually put yourself in that place of ignorance.
Yeah, no, I'm a firm believer of that. I think of it in terms of thinking about looking at things with child's eyes,
for sure,
or that creative ignorance.
Yeah,
is what I also like to call it. Just coming back to a place where it's almost like an innocence.
Definitely.
Yeah, because as you get older and the more knowledge you accumulate about the way something should be structured, or or like, oh, this genre should be structured in this way, so then I create music that sounds kind of like this, but then you have that knowledge, but eventually it can kind of inhibit you from creating something that's authentic to you.
Definitely.
And you're just creating something that is almost a regurgitation of a genre.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is a huge problem to run into, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I hate genres. Like, I hate like when people ask like that, because immediately people want to put you in a box. They want to put you in like, this is what you do. Like, it's weird. I feel like music particularly, I mean, maybe not other, like, just maybe because it's just so popular, but I feel like you just have to be in a genre. Like if you're not true to your genre, then you're like an outcast or something like that, which is really weird. It's like, especially in today, is like, why does everyone want the same thing? Yeah. Like, I guess.
Well, I think people want to make sense out of certain things.
Yeah.
If something is unfamiliar to a mass audience and they don't know how to put it into some sort of box and genre, it's hard to translate that to other people.
True.
And because music is this certain identifiable thing where if you like a certain band, if I have a conversation with you about music and you ask me what bands I like, you're going to have some sort of impression on the kind of person I am.
Definitely.
In some capacity.
Yeah. Definitely.
Right?
It's for sure. Like, it is like just part of you.
Yeah.
And especially in some ways, you attribute those genres to like a type of person. And
exactly. Yeah. Because if I told you my favorite,
good,
if I told you my favorite music is jazz, you probably would think a certain way, and then if I told you my favorite music is EDM, you'd think another way, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's all of these frequencies and sounds and rhythms and beats and things that equate to the genre. So I guess it's just interesting how we try to put things into like a quantifiable language. Right?
Yeah.
On like, this is what this is.
Yeah, like you just kind of have to like compartmentalize every part of it. But I also, especially in like today's world too, with Spotify and streaming and stuff, I think people are listening to so much different types of music, and just it's creating like so many new genres and is blurring lines between genres, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting about, speaking about sounds and genres, to think about the idea of language and, how we're exchanging this conversation. And, I might mean for what I'm saying to come off a certain way, and you're trying to, we're having this conversation, right? And certain conversations for some reason have more value than other conversations, which is how like certain podcasts or even certain music like gains popularity in a certain way, but it just sounds frequencies and, but I don't know. I guess I'm thinking of that as in terms of like an abstract thought.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Anyways, I just thought about that. Anyways, I don't know. But, do you have any advice for people that are trying to get into a creative career path?
Oh, man.
Or just to get into something, let's go with creative career path.
Creative career path? Hey, so you just got to keep on doing it. That's the thing. I mean, that's like the best advice, I guess, like anyone could give, is just like keep on doing it. Like that's the hardest thing. It's the hardest part, is just to stop and be like, all right, I'm done with this. It's like, because the creative life is hard. It's like it's emotionally taxing. It's financially not always like the most stable situation, but I don't know. I feel like if you believe in what you're doing and you just keep on doing it, like I said, it's the intent. If you just like, if what you're doing is real, people will identify with that. There's always going to be someone that's going to identify with that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's good. I don't know, maybe not.
No, I think that's good. I think that's good. What makes you want to keep on going?
Dude, I don't know. I ask myself that every day.
Do you?
Like my freaking OCD, I don't know, ADD, all of it just like keeping me going. I don't know. I honestly, sometimes I have no idea, but I don't know. I love it. You understand? Like I have to. It's something I just have to do. I don't like. I said I want to do what I want to do,
mm-hmm.
and it's the best way to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like just making music for my life is like what I've always wanted to do. So
yeah,
it's got to keep on doing it.
What do you find? I guess what is the most fulfilling part of being able to constantly do what you want to do?
I mean, there's just so many of it. I mean, like just when you release music and you see people listening to it and loving it, and or when you play a show and the interaction with fans and stuff like that, like and the stories you hear from people that listen to your music and the impact it's had on their life, it definitely is the more fulfilling part, because you know that what you felt resonated with someone else and they felt that too. I think that there's something special in that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, like humans are more connected than I think we realize. And when you connect with someone on an artistic level, I don't know, it satisfies you, I think, in a way that nothing else really can in life. So I think that's what it is.
I like that.
The fans, man. I do it for the fans.
That's hilarious. That's awesome, man. Well, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to do
definitely.
this.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course.